Good morning, dolls, and welcome to Little Gretchen's workshop. So we have quite a bit of work cut out for us today to fill and personalize your dollhouse dresser drawers and also the bags, boxes, and luggage of the previous series. Now, if you haven't seen my series on bags, boxes, and luggage, I will leave a link in the description below. Now, when I'm making shirts or clothing to go in the drawers, trunks, or luggage, I use small flexible pieces of paper or small thin card, generally something with the same weight and flexibility of an index card. Now, dolls, even though I'm going to show a few measurements here, these are not hard, fast measurements because, again, you need to measure the inside of your drawer, suitcase, or trunk to make sure they'll fit inside your items. Now, dolls, I had a few pieces of fabric that I really wanted to use, but you can definitely use a lot of scraps and random pieces for a project like this. And I would advise you to do more than one because while you're in the mood, you're going to want to try a lot of different techniques. Now, I do have the liquid stitch on hand, but I'll be primarily using the Beacon's glue because it grabs so fast. The liquid stitch is wonderful for hemming, but when I'm trying to grab fast for projects like this, the Beacon's glue works the best. Now, I was pulling out all my options, the fabrics, the lace, the piping, everything that I thought I might need for this project as possibilities for folded shirts. And what I like to do generally, dolls, is make all my little squares first before I start to do the detailing and the design of the shirt. So I use a little piece of fabric that was bigger than my card, but is big enough to fold over and completely cover the little card piece. And I'm going to show you here. Now here's my little piece of cardstock, and I put it in the middle, and you kind of almost fold it like you're wrapping a present. Now, it didn't meet in the middle, but it's not a problem because when I fold up the ends, it's going to cover that white part. I don't like to make it too bulky because I want to be able to put more than one thing in a drawer or in a piece of luggage. And here I am using the Beacon's glue and primarily putting it along that edge where the fabric is going to touch. You don't need to cover the whole card. Now you will be putting more in the middle of the card when you fold up the end pieces. Now, dolls, take your time. If this is the first time for you doing a project like this, definitely take your time. I like my ends to be a little scrunched up so it'll look like somebody folded it like me. Now, dolls, if you like perfect folds, you definitely need to take more time and make sure each corner lays perfectly. But yeah, that's not my personality type. Now, dolls, you will notice when I got to the second end, I did want to put a little bit of a hem here because I didn't want it to be any fraying. I wanted it to look like this side had a finished hem. So when I fold it in, there will be no strings. And yeah, you can kind of see what I mean now. Now that I folded it, it looks like it's all one piece is smooth and neat and finishes off that part that wasn't finished on the other side. So now you have your first little square. And I would advise you to do this with all of your fabrics before you begin to add the collars and the buttons and the details, because to me it just goes smoother. Now with this particular shirt, I wanted to make it have a sleeve that was kind of folded over the front. And so I used another piece of fabric, folded it in, and the inside of this sleeve is not open, dolls. It doesn't need to because it's going to be glued down to the face of the little square. But I did put some little pleats here and tucks to make it look as though it had a really nice, neat cuff for the shirt. And after I ironed it down with my clover iron, I created another small narrow piece so that it would be the actual cuff and cover the end of the sleeve so there's no need to hem that part. So here I am adding the cuff that was drying around the end of the sleeve and just added a little bit of glue. And again, dolls, it doesn't have to be perfect because it's going to be glued down, but do it as neatly as possible. Now with this piece of fabric, because it was striped, I was trying to line the stripes up as nice and as neatly as possible so they would have a little uniformity to it. And I did use my clover iron to make sure that that glue cured really well. Now here's my little square, and I'm kind of folding it around so I'll be able to see the sleeve in the front of the little shirt. Now I do want to add a little placket so that it'll look as though there's an area to put buttons on it. But I set it aside for a moment because I was working on the design. And although I wasn't ready to add the details, I did go on and create the collar and use the same technique that I used to make the cuff, just made it a little wider. And then after the glue cured, I cut the corners on the collar. Now here I am making the little placket, again making it very similar to the way that I made the cuff, just made it a little bit narrower and laid it down the middle of the little square. Then I went on to use the exact same technique to make a purple shirt or a purple square. And I'm just showing it again, dolls, because I learned from repetition. So I'm just showing you the process again with the purple fabric. I put it down the sides of the card, folded up the bottom, smushed it in so that it'll dry like it was a little folded, flipped it over, and that little end, I put a little bit more glue. Now this piece had a salvage edge, so I didn't make a hem for it. So if you can use your salvage edge to your advantage so you don't have to create a hem, that's always a great idea. And there is my purple square ready to be embellished and detailed. Okay, now dolls, this is a peach colored one, and I did use a little bit bigger piece of fabric. So I'm just showing you the technique again with a bigger piece of fabric. You know, no worries on it. Now this fabric was a little bit thinner, so it kind of had the tendency to allow the glue to bleed through. So you have to be really careful with that, dolls, when you're dealing with different weight fabrics. But I folded it in a little bit, and I did have to create a hem on this one because it was not a selvage end and it was framed. So I folded it over the same way I did the red and white striped fabric. And there we go. Now this one was a little bit different because I was using lace. And by lace being kind of see-through, I used a piece of card that was more of a taupe or wheat color instead of the white card. And folded it over the same way, I did have to use a little bit more tension to get it to stay down. And the nice part about lace, there's no hem. Now, dolls, here's another one I tried, and this was just ribbon, and it was really cute ribbon that had the sort of like eyelet loops along the edge, and I thought that would look cute to almost look as though they were button loops on a top or blouse. So I folded two pieces of the navy ribbon and kind of overlapped them in the middle to make it look as though that was the placket, but I did need to clamp it down because it wasn't accepting the glue as easily. Now I did another lace one, and after this lace one dried, I did get a little bit excited and wanted to do a little bit of the detailing. So I trimmed off a really small portion of a piece of lace that I had, that thin edge. I cut that off and put it down the middle of this lace piece to pretend that that little piece of decoration was the actual placket. And then I began to fold the larger part of the lace around the neckline to actually be a lace collar. So, dolls, after I got going, I just lost control. I had so many ideas tumbling around in my head, and I wanted to try them all at once. So forgive me if this part of the video just kind of goes off the rails because I went from one thing to another. So I went back to the purple square, and I had some purple lace, which is the same lace that's actually on Marguerite's dress. And I decided it looked really cute on this little purple piece. And then I folded around the top to be the collar. And again, dolls, no specific rhyme or reason. I was just seeing things in my head. And that's kind of like a high Victorian collar. I thought that was cute. And I went on to make a black one and did a sleeve on it and bound off one portion of the sleeve to make it look as though the end of the sleeve was ruffled. And then I found a small sheer piece of black ribbon and I tied it into a little bow, and I kept on working with it to get the bow as small as I possibly could because again, I could have gone with a big bow, but I wanted it to look really dainty and little, so I kept playing with it to make the bow smaller and smaller. And when I got done, I realized that same piece of ribbon would be great to make a collar. So then I folded a small piece of the collar around the neck area of my little lace square, and added a little glue so that it would grab the first piece. And then I laid it on there again and pressed down the little piece of ribbon on the back of the top so that it would stick down as the collar, and then wrapped it around the front. And then I went on to another piece and worked with the lace to make a little lace collar on the top of this one. And dolls, I'm just going over these different techniques. Do what works for you. Do what you like. Play around with this. Have fun. It really, really is amazing how something this simple could make such a variety of looks. So take your time. Let your imagination be free. This is the time where all those little bits and scraps of lace and ribbon and piping come in really handy. Now this little piece of lace or binding I really love. I've used it on several different dresses of the dolls in the rooming house. I thought it was so delicate and it looked so pretty. So I put it down the front of this peach top and I thought it looked really, really pretty, really, really dainty. And I did the same type of lace high neck collar where I folded it around in a circle and overlapped it. After the little collar was dry, I added glue to the top of the shirt and just placed the little collar in place. And I did the same thing on this little blue lace top using the same design. Now, dolls, I'm all about the lace and the ruffles and all the just frilly little girly things. But if you're not into the lace and all the embellishments, your shirts can be simple. You can just use your fabric to make your collars and your plackets. Now, let's get back to the red striped top. Now, after I put the placket on, I added a little glue to the area I want to put the collar. And I folded the collar around, very similar to the way that I added the black ribbon around the black lace top. And I glued it to the front. I added a little glue so it would glue to the top or the shoulder area and then folded it down. Now, some people cut their collars first, but I like to cut the collar after I've adjusted it to make sure I don't cut it too short. And here I am adding the sleeve to the side, deciding how I'm going to fold it over and adjust it so that it looks the most natural. Now, dolls, the little sleeve part is not necessary. You would be absolutely fine just to do the folded shirt, but I'm just showing you what I did to get the look that I got. And I folded it over kind of short so you'd only really see the cuff and the front of that sleeve. Now, I did do another portion because I did want to show you how to make some men's shirts. I tried to use fabrics that looked a little bit more masculine or darker, and I cut my cards slightly bigger than the ones that I used to make the ladies' shirts. Now, dolls, this is totally up to you, but I've got some men in the house and I have men's suitcases, so I did want to have a few men's shirts laying around. I guess primarily my dollhouse is probably going to have more women's stuff laying around because there are so many ladies in the house. But you do want a few men's accessories and items in your rooms and spaces if you have men dolls in your house. Now I used the exact same technique and I added the area where I'm going to put the placket. And this piece of fabric had stripes or sort of like a plaid. So I just followed the lines in the design of the shirt to know where to lay it. And after I made the placket and the collar, it was all done and ready to go. Now, this is one of those instances you would have to decide whether you want to make a sleeve or not. But again, it's absolutely fine with just the collar, the placket, and the body of the shirt. And you're all done. You're all ready to put buttons on it. Now here's a quick glance at a man and a woman's shirt. So I'm just going on to just show you dolls. I did several other little tops using the same techniques, but using maybe different lace and different fabric, different placement of the collars. But use your own discretion. Take your time, have fun, and come up with some creations that are uniquely yours that fit into your room box setting or into your dollhouse. But make sure that whatever you make, it's the right size where it'll fit into your bags, boxes, or luggage. Now here I'm going to just give you a quick glance of a couple of the finished pieces. I did one that was kind of simple, more plain, no lace, no ribbon. And then I added ribbon to this one that I was working on a little bit earlier. So again, as I mentioned, just take the time and come up with your own ideas. And you definitely want to use a lot of variety because all your dolls are not the same. They have different personalities, different likes and dislikes, different colors. Also consider the lives of the dolls that are wearing the clothes. Now let me go on and show you how I added the buttons. And the buttons are actually just the rivets that I was actually using on the bags, boxes, and luggage. But I used the E6000 bead glue to add the little gold studs down the front of the shirt to simulate the look of buttons. Now, dolls, no, I did not actually make buttons, but I think these look very realistic. They are in scale, and I thought they added a nice little shine or sparkle to the front of the otherwise simple shirts. Now, while I allow these buttons to dry, let me go ahead and keep a promise. Now, I promised you, dolls, I would show you how to make a tray for the inside of the trunk. And I do think it's relevant in this video because it's where you would actually put the folded clothes inside of your trunk. So I use the same technique that I use to make the lids of my trunks. So I use 4 popsicle sticks side by side after I cut off the rounds to the ends of the sticks. Now you make sure that the ends of the sticks are smaller than the inside of your trunk. So it'll actually sit inside and it'll be able to close. You don't want to make it the same size as the trunk lid because it'll be too wide and won't fit on the inside. Now for this particular tray, I used the birch wood coffee stir sticks. I didn't use the popsicle sticks as the side rails, but you actually could. You have to just make sure that it goes deeper enough down into the chest so that the lid will close. After the sides are on, you're going to cut short pieces for the ends and a piece slightly shorter to put across the middle to divide the tray. Now you don't have to divide the tray. I think it looks really cute, but you definitely want to make it a little bit shorter so it'll fit in snugly, but it won't make your side rails bow out. Keep you some sandpaper nearby in case you have to sand it to make it fit properly. After all the pieces are dry, fit it in one more time to make sure you sized everything and that you did enough sanding, and it fits really good. I'm feeling happy with the way it closes. Everything closes flush and neatly. Now it's time to go ahead and stain it and prepare to line it. Now that the tray is stained, I just want to show you the inside of my trunk where I left a little edge on my popsicle sticks on the inside where the tray actually rests so it doesn't fall to the bottom of the trunk. And it's all ready to be lined. Now I've already cut a couple pieces of wallpaper that I thought would look really nice in the inside. Now I'm not lining the inside of the trunk. I'm only going to line the tray. And I've already pre-cut my pieces and added the glue. And there you go, a tray for inside your trunk. So dolls, I hope you use these techniques to make things so that you can fill your trunks and your dresser drawers and your bags and boxes to really create realism and personalize your doll houses and your miniature spaces. Now dolls, if you've enjoyed this video today, definitely let me know in the comments. Also like, share, and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you'll know when I upload a new video. I sure have enjoyed making this video for you dolls today, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next episode of Little Gretchen's Workshop. Bye-bye now, dolls.